Welcome back, everyone. We're continuing our reading of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita here from Govardhana Hill at ISKCON's Bhaktivedanta Ashram, and we're conducting a reading of the Madhya Lila of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, translated and commentated upon by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swāmī Prabhupada, original author Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. We're taking up at the 22nd chapter entitled The Process of Devotional Service, and we're at text number 89, and that's where we'll begin. No? Oh, all right. 98. Okay, 99. There are two kinds of devotees: those who are fully satiated and free from all material desires, and those who are fully surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord. Their qualities are one and the same, but those who are fully surrendered to Krishna's lotus feet are qualified with another transcendental quality, Atma Samarpana, full surrender without reservation. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam rakshishyati vishvaso goptritre varanam tata atma nishepa karpanye shad vidha sharanagati. The 6 divisions of surrender are the acceptance of those things favorable to devotional service, the rejection of unfavorable things, the conviction that Krishna will give protection, the acceptance of the Lord as one's guardian or master, full surrender, and humility. Purport: one who is fully surrendered is qualified with the 6 following characteristics. 1. The devotee has to accept everything that is favorable for the rendering of transcendental service to the Lord. 2. He must reject everything unfavorable to the Lord's service. This is also called renunciation. 3. A devotee must be firmly convinced that Krishna will give him protection. No one else can actually give one protection, and being firmly convinced of this is called faith. This kind of faith is different from the faith of an impersonalist who wants to merge into the Brahman effulgence in order to benefit by cessation of repeated birth and death. A devotee wants to remain always in the Lord's service. In this way, Krishna is merciful to his devotees and gives him all protection from the dangers found on the path of devotional service. 4. The devotee should accept Krishna as his supreme maintainer and master. He should not think that he is being protected by a demigod. He should depend only on Krishna, considering him the only protector. The devotee must be firmly convinced that within the 3 worlds he has no protector or maintainer other than Krishna. 5. Self-surrender means remembering that one's activities and desires are not independent. The devotee is completely dependent on Krishna, and he acts and thinks as Krishna desires. 6. The devotee is meek and humble. Lord Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasya chaham hridisan nivishto matak smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedaisya sarver ahameva vedyo Vedanta krid veda vedeva chaham. I am seated in everyone's heart, and for me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Situated in everyone's heart, Krishna deals differently according to the living entity's position. The living entity's position is to be under the protection of the illusory energy, or under Krishna's personal protection. When a living entity is fully surrendered, he is under the direct protection of Krishna, and Krishna gives him all intelligence by which he can advance in spiritual realization. The non-devotee, however, being under the protection of the illusory energy, increasingly forgets his relationship with Krishna. Sometimes it is asked how Krishna causes one to forget. Krishna personally causes his devotee to forget material activities, and through the agency of Maya, Krishna causes the non-devotee to forget his devotional service to the Lord. This is called apohana. Real renunciation comes when Krishna makes you forget your attachments to the material world. One whose body is fully surrendered takes shelter at the holy place where Krishna had his pastimes, and he prays to the Lord, "My Lord, I am yours." Understanding this with his mind, he enjoys spiritual bliss. The two last verses appear in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. When a devotee thus fully surrenders under Krishna's lotus feet, Krishna accepts him as one of his confidential devotees. The living entity who is subjected to birth and death attains immortality when he gives up all material activities, dedicates his life to the execution of my order, and acts according to my directions. In this way, he becomes fit to enjoy the spiritual bliss derived from exchanging loving mellows with me. Purport: this is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:29-34. Krishna was advising his most confidential servant Uddhava about sambandha, abhideya, and prayojan. These concern one's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the activities of that relationship, as well as the perfection of life. The Lord also described the characteristics of confidential devotees. My dear Sanatan, please now hear about the regulative principles for execution of devotional service. By this process, one can attain the highest perfection of love of Godhead, which is the most desirable treasure. Kriti sadhya bhavet sadhya bhava sa sadhana vida nitya siddhasya bhavasya prakratyam hridisanyata. When transcendental devotional service, by which love for Krishna is attained, is executed by the senses, it is called sadhana bhakti, or the regulative discharge of devotional service. Such devotion eternally exists within the heart of every living entity. The awakening of this eternal devotion is the potentiality of devotional service in practice. This verse is found in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Because living entities are minute, atomic parts and parcels of the Lord, devotional service is already present within them in a dormant condition. Devotional service begins with Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting. When a man is sleeping, he can be awakened by sound vibration. Therefore, every conditioned soul should be given the chance to hear the Hare Krishna Mahamantra chanted by a pure Vaishnava. One who hears the Hare Krishna mantra thus vibrated is awakened to spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness. In this way, one's mind gradually becomes purified. As stated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, when the mind is purified, the senses are also purified. Instead of using the senses for sense gratification, the awakened devotee employs the senses in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is the process by which dormant love for Krishna is awakened. The spiritual activities of hearing, chanting, remembering, and so forth are the natural characteristics of devotional service. The marginal characteristic is that it awakens pure love for Krishna. Pure love for Krishna is eternally established in the hearts of the living entities. It is not something to be gained from another source. When the heart is purified by hearing and chanting, this love naturally awakens. There are two processes of practical devotional service. One is regulative devotional service, and the other is spontaneous devotional service. Those who have not attained the platform of spontaneous attachment in devotional service render devotional service under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, according to the regulative principles mentioned in the revealed scriptures. According to the revealed scriptures, this kind of devotional service is called Vaidhi Bhakti. In the beginning, one has to hear from a bona fide spiritual master. This is favorable for advancing in devotional service. According to this process, one hears, chants, remembers, and engages in deity worship, acting under the directions of the spiritual master. These are the essential preliminary activities of devotional service. Devotional service must not be executed for some material purpose. one should not even have a desire to merge into the absolute truth. One has to render such service out of love only. Ahaitukya pratyata. Devotional service must be without ulterior motives. Then material conditions cannot check it. Gradually, one can rise to the platform of spontaneous, loving service. A child is sent to school by force to receive an education, but when he gets a little taste of education at an advanced age, he automatically participates. He becomes a learned scholar. One cannot force a person to become a scholar, but sometimes force is used in the beginning. A child is forced to go to school and read and write according to the instructions of his teachers. Such is the difference between Vaidhi Bhakti and spontaneous bhakti. Dormant love for Krishna exists in everyone's heart, and it simply has to be awakened by the regulative process of devotional service. One has to learn to use a typewriter by following the regulative principles of the typing book. One has to place his fingers on the keys in such a way and practice. But when one becomes adept, he can type swiftly and correctly without even looking at the keys. He can type swiftly and correctly without even looking at the keys. Similarly, one has to follow the rules and regulations of devotional service as they are set down by the spiritual master. Then one can come to the point of spontaneous loving service. This love is already there within the heart of everyone. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema. Spontaneous service is not artificial. One simply has to come to that platform by rendering devotional service according to the regulative principles. Thus one has to practice hearing and chanting and following the other regulative principles by washing the temple, cleansing oneself, rising early in the morning, attending Mangalarti, and so on. If one does not come to the platform of spontaneous service in the beginning, he must adopt regulative service according to the instructions of the spiritual master. This regulative service is called Vaidhi Bhakti. Text number 110. O descendant of Bharat, O Maharaj Parikshit, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart as Paramatma, who is the Supreme Controller and who always removes the miseries of the living entities, must always be heard about from reliable sources. And he must be glorified and remembered by one who wishes to become fearless. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 2.1.5. It is one's duty to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the hearing process. This is called Shrotavya. If one has heard properly about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his duty is to glorify the Lord and preach His glories. This is called Kirtitavya. When one hears about the Lord and glorifies Him, it is natural to think of Him. This is called Smartavya. All this must be carried out if one actually wants to be immune from fear. From the mouth of Brahma, the Brahminical order has come into existence. Similarly, from his arms, the Kshatriyas have come. From his waist, the Vaishyas have come, and from his legs, the Shudras have come. These four orders and their spiritual counterparts, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas, combine to make human society complete. This verse and the next are quotations from Srimad Bhagavatam. If one simply maintains an official position in the four Varnas and Ashramas, but does not worship the Supreme Lord Vishnu, he falls down from his puffed up position into a hellish condition. Krishna is the origin of Lord Vishnu. He should always be remembered and never forgotten at any time. All the rules and prohibitions mentioned in the Shastras should be the servants of these two principles. Purport: this verse is a quotation from the Padma Purana. There are many regulative principles in the Shastras and directions given by the spiritual master. These regulative principles should act as servants of the basic principle. That is, one should always remember Krishna and never forget him. This is possible when one chants the Hare Krishna mantra. Therefore, one must strictly chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra 24 hours daily. One may have other duties to perform under the direction of the spiritual master, but he must first abide by the spiritual master's order to chant a certain number of rounds. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we have recommended that the neophyte chant at least 16 rounds. This chanting of 16 rounds is absolutely necessary if one wants to remember Krishna and not forget him. Of all the regulative principles, the spiritual master's order to chant at least 16 rounds is most essential. One may sell books or enlist life members or render some other service, but these duties are not ordinary duties. These duties serve as an impetus for remembering Krishna. When one goes with a Sankirtan party or sells books, he naturally remembers that he is going to sell Krishna's books. In this way, he is remembering Krishna. When one goes to enlist a life member, he talks about Krishna and thereby remembers him. Smartavyasa tarham Vishnur vismartavyo najatuchet. The conclusion is that one must act in such a way that he will always remember Krishna, and one must refrain from doing things that make him forget Krishna. These two principles form the basic background of Krishna consciousness. I shall say something about the various practices of devotional service, which is expanded in so many ways. I wish to speak briefly of the essential practices. On the path of regulative devotional service, one must observe the following items. 1. One must accept a bona fide spiritual master. 2. One must accept initiation from him. 3. One must serve him. 4. One must receive instructions from the spiritual master and make inquiries in order to learn devotional service. 5. One must follow in the footsteps of the previous acharyas and follow the directions given by the spiritual master. The next steps are as follows. 6. One should be prepared to give up everything for Krishna's satisfaction, and one should also accept everything for Krishna's satisfaction. 7. One must live in a place where Krishna is present, a city like Vrindavan or Mathura, or a Krishna temple. 8. One should acquire a livelihood that is just sufficient to keep body and soul together. 9. One must fast on the Ekadashi day. 10. One should worship Dhatri trees, banyan trees, cows, Brahmins, and devotees of Lord Vishnu. 11. One should avoid offenses against devotional service and the holy name. Purport: there are 10 items in the beginning of devotional service, up to the point of worshipping the Dhatri trees, banyan trees, cows, Brahmanas, and devotees of Lord Vishnu. The 11th item is to avoid offenses when rendering devotional service and chanting the holy names. The 12th item is to give up the company of non-devotees. 13. One should not accept an unlimited number of disciples. 14. One should not partially study many scriptures just to be able to give references and expand explanations. Purport: accepting an unlimited number of disciples, devotees, or disciples is very risky for one who is not a preacher. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, a preacher has to accept many disciples to expand the cult of Krishna consciousness of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is risky because when a spiritual master accepts a disciple, he naturally accepts the disciple's sinful activities and their reactions. Unless he is very powerful, he cannot assimilate all the sinful reactions of his disciples, and he has to suffer the consequences. Therefore, one is generally forbidden to accept many disciples. One should not partially study a book just to pose oneself as a great scholar by being able to refer to scriptures. In our Krishna consciousness movement, we have therefore limited our study of the Vedic literatures to the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. These 4 works are sufficient for preaching purposes. They are adequate for the understanding of the philosophy and the spreading of missionary activities all over the world. If one studies a particular book, he must do so thoroughly. That is the principle. By thoroughly studying a limited number of books, one can understand the philosophy. 15. You can mark that. It goes in that category of assimilate what you have. Not that you have a category, but you can make one. 15. The devotee should treat loss and gain equally. 16. The devotee should not be overwhelmed by lamentation. 17. The devotee should not worship demigods, nor should he disrespect them. Similarly, the devotee should not study or criticize other scriptures. 18. The devotee should not hear Lord Vishnu or his devotees blasphemed. 19. The devotee should avoid reading or hearing newspapers or mundane books that contain stories of love affairs between men and women, or subjects palatable to the senses. 20. Neither by mind nor words should the devotee cause anxiety to any living entity, regardless how insignificant he may be. Purport: the first 10 items are do's and the second 10 items are don'ts. Thus, the first 10 items give direct action, and the second 10 items give indirect action. 121. After one is established in devotional service, the positive actions are 1. Hearing, 2. Chanting, 3. Remembering, 4. Worshipping, 5. Praying, 6. Serving, 7. Accepting servitorship, 8. Becoming a friend, and 9. Surrendering fully. One should also, 10. Dance before the deity, 11. Sing before the deity, 12. Open one's mind to the deity, 13. Offer obeisances to the deity, 14. Stand up before the deity and the spiritual master just to show them respect, 15. Follow the deity or the spiritual master, and 16. Visit different places of pilgrimage or go to see the deity in the temple. One should 17. Circumambulate the temple, 18. Recite various prayers, 19. Chant softly, 20. Chant congregationally, 21. Smell the incense and flower garlands offered to the deity, and 22. Eat the remnants of food offered to the deity. One should 23. Attend arti and festivals, 24. See the deity, 25. Present what is very dear to oneself to the deity, 26. Meditate on the deity, 27 through 30. Serve those related to the Lord. Tadiya means the tulsi leaves, the devotees of Krishna, the birthplace of Krishna, Mathura, and the Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna is very eager to see his devotees serve tulsi, Vaishnavas, Mathura, and Bhagavatam. 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 After item 26, meditation, the 27th is to serve tulsi. The 28th is to serve the Vaishnavas. See, to be tulasi, it would have to have a long A. And there is no long A. Tulasi is short. Tulsi. Tulasi. At best you can get tulasi. Not tulasi Krishna. You can't get that from this. Can you? Tulsi. Tulasi. Tulasi. You can't get tulasi. I'm sorry. You can't get there. After item 26, meditation, the 27th is to serve tulsi. The 28th is to serve the Vaishnavas. The 29th is to live in Mathura, the birthplace of Lord Krishna. And the 30th is to read Srimad Bhagavatam regularly. 31, one should perform all endeavors for Krishna. 32, one should look forward to his mercy. 33, one should partake of various ceremonies with devotees. 4 important items of devotional service. Sadhu Sangha Nam Kirtan Bhagavat Shravan Mathura Bas Shri Murtira Shraddhaya Sevana. Should mark that verse. We should make a placard of it in our temple, because that's what our community was based on, because everyone's spread out all over the place. We figured if we concentrate on these 5 things, then maybe we can hold together somehow or other. So we'll make a beautiful placard. Okay? One should associate with devotees, chant the holy name of the Lord, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, reside at Mathura, and worship the deity with faith and veneration. Sakala sadhan shreshta e pancha ango, Krishna prema janmai e panchera alpashanga. These 5 limbs of devotional service are the best of all. Even a slight performance of these 5 awakens love for Krishna. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur points out that there are 35 items up to the point of observing special vows in the month of Kartik. To these 35 items, another 4 are added, namely marking tilak on different parts of the body, writing the names of the Lord all over the body, accepting the deity's garland, and accepting Charnamrita. These 4 items are understood to be included by Kaviraj Goswami within Archan, worship of the deity. Although these items are not mentioned here, they are to be added to the previous 35 items. Thus the total number becomes 39. To these 39 should be added 5 others: association with devotees, chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, reading Srimad Bhagavatam regularly, residing in Mathura, the birthplace of Krishna, and worshipping the deity with great respect and veneration. The 39 items plus these 5 come to a total of 44. If we add the previous 20 items to these 44, the total number becomes 64. The 5 items mentioned above repeat previously mentioned items. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami states, Anganam panchakasyasya purva vilikitasya cha nikila shraistya bodhaya punar apyatra shamshanam. The glorification of these 5 items, association with devotees, chanting the holy name, and so on, is to make known the complete superiority of these 5 practices of devotional service. The 64 items of devotional service include all the activities of the body, mind, and senses. Thus, the 64 items engage one in the devotional service in all respects. With love and faith, one should worship the lotus feet of the deity. Purport: this verse and the following 2 verses are found in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. One should taste the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of pure devotees. And one should associate with the devotees who are more advanced than oneself and who are endowed with a similar type of affection for the Lord. The word sajatiya shraye snigde sadhau sangha swatovare are very important. One should not associate with professional Bhagavatam reciters. A professional Bhagavatam reciter is one who is not in the disciplic succession, or one who has no taste for bhakti yoga. Simply on the strength of grammatical knowledge and word jugglery, professional reciters maintain their bodies and their desires for sense gratification by reading Srimad Bhagavatam. One should also avoid those who are averse to Lord Vishnu and his devotees, those who are Mayavadis, those who offend the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, those who simply dress as Vaishnavas or so-called Goswamis, and those who make a business of selling Vedic mantras and reciting Srimad Bhagavatam to maintain their families. One should not try to understand Srimad Bhagavatam from a materialistic person, from materialistic people. According to the Vedic injunctions, Yasya Devi Para Bhakti, the Srimad Bhagavatam can be recited only by one who has unflinching faith in the lotus feet of Krishna and his devotee, the spiritual master. One should try to understand Srimad Bhagavatam from the spiritual master. The Vedic injunctions states, Bhaktya Bhagavatam Grayam na bhujya na chatikaya. One has to understand Srimad Bhagavatam through the process of devotional service and by hearing the recitation of a pure devotee. These are the injunctions of the Vedic literature, Shruti and Smriti. Those who are not in the disciplic succession and who are not pure devotees cannot understand the real mysterious objective of Srimad Bhagavatam and Srimad Bhagavad Gita. One should congregationally chant the holy name of the Lord and reside in Vrindavan. Narottam Das Thakur's son, Shigoda Mandala Bhumi, Jeba, Jane, Chintamani, Tar Hoy, Rajabhumi Bash. One who understands the transcendental nature of Navadvip and its surrounding area where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enacted his pastimes resides always in Vrindavan. Similarly, living in Jagannath Puri is as good as living in Vrindavan. The conclusion is that Navadvip Dham, Jagannath Puri Dham, and Vrindavan Dham are identical. Haribol. However, if one goes to Mathura Mandala Bhumi for sense gratification or to make a livelihood, he commits an offense and is condemned. Whoever does so must be penalized in the next life by becoming a hog or a monkey in Vrindavan Dham. After taking on such a body, the offender is liberated in the next life. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur remarks that residing in Vrindavan with a view to enjoy sense gratification surely leads a so-called devotee to a lower species. The power of these 5 principles, got to read the verse. Duruhad bhuta viryesmin shraddha dures tu panchake. Yatra swalpo pisambandha sadyam bhava janmane. Dur uha. Difficult to understand. Now this is going to be difficult to understand, so bear with us. Adbhuta, wonderful. Virye, in the power. Asmin, in this. Shraddha, faith. Dure, far away. Astu, let it be. Panchake, in the above mentioned 5 principles. Yatra, in which. Sualpa, a little. Api, even. Sambandha, connection. Satyam, of those who are intelligent and offenseless. Mark this one too, please. Bhava janmane, to awaken one's dormant love for Krishna. Are you ready for the translation? Yeah. Outside People's Party. Yeah. All right. The power of these 5 principles is very wonderful and difficult to understand. Even without faith in them, a person who is offenseless can awaken his dormant love of Krishna simply by being a little connected to them. Hari Hari! Hari Hari! This is from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, 1-2-238. How do you feel about that? It's very interesting. There's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita that I've heard touted as a eternal philosophical principle, which it is to some degree. I mean, it says that that's the last one in the 17th chapter, any sacrifice done without faith is useless in this life and the next. However, there are mitigating or balancing statements like this. This very clearly says by Rupa Goswami, even if you don't have faith in this process, even without faith in them, that's the translation, a person who is offenseless. Shraddha dure, your faith is far away. If you're offenseless, you can awaken dormant love for Krishna simply by being a little connected with him. Prabhu.
Question.
Wait a minute. We'll give you the mic, otherwise you get 0.0001 credit.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Is the verse that you're referring to in the Bhagavad Gita related to devotional service or to any type of austerity, yagya, tapa, which may be considered more mundane? If you don't have faith in, while performing those mundane yagyas, then shrama eva kevalam. But in bhakti, even if you do it out of circumstantial situation that you just got swept into a Harinam party or something, you don't know what's going on, you don't have faith in any of this, but still you will get the benefit. Does that make sense, or is it
makes sense to me.
far-fetched?
It makes sense to me based on other Shastra, for instance, in the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam, when Shukadeva Goswami mentions how the holy name is like fire. It burns, whether one knows the effect of fire or not, it still has its effect. So it leads to also the concept of agyata sukriti, which some people push back on and say there is no agyata sukriti, based on that verse in the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. But I think this is a counteracting point. Yes, Prabhu.
In the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is speaking about Shraddha Traivibhaga.
Shraddha what?
Traivibhaga.
Traivibhaga.
the three types of faith, it is not speaking about the transcendental faith and how these kind of people with this kind of faith, either in sattva, rajasa, tamas, based on their sabhava, how they can ultimately reach the absolute truth, and that's how the concluding verse is there. But here, whether Shraddha or Helena, whether somebody has faith in the holy name or doesn't have the faith, Bhakti Devi can manifest and reveal her potency. So in that context, what is mentioned by Rupa Goswami and in Madhurya Kadamini, it is, similar.
Well, I'm relieved to hear that. That was a comment you made, right?
Yeah.
I was saying I'm relieved to hear it. Happy to hear it. Were you asking a question at the end? Or just making an observation? Sadhu, sadhu. Thank you. Yes? Pallabachandra.
It mentions regulative principles. And then he goes on.
The list of 64?
Yeah, and then he goes on to list a lot of practices. The regulative principles that we make vows during initiation aren't mentioned here. So I'm wondering what the Shastric reference is for the initiation vows, the regulative principles, and how they compare to these practices as regulative principles.
Well, there's do's and do nots. And the do nots are based on a verse I said earlier. Madhya seva nitya hi jantur nahi tatra shodana vyavastitis yagna vibhava suragraha astu nivritta nishta. That verse, it's Bhagavatam, says that people are naturally inclined to meat eating, gambling. Meeting doesn't say gambling, meeting, illicit sex and intoxication. And so then it says all the Vedic conjunctions are there. Whatever Vedic conjunctions are there that mention those, for instance, the Grihastha ashram's process for Govardhana samskar, or any liquor that's mentioned, meat eating, all of these things, it said that they're only for those who are addicted to them, and they're done in the way of ritual cups of wine. I don't think they're actually consumed. They're only in some ritual where they smell them or something. And then everything's regulated. The Grihastha ashram's regulated for begetting children and so forth. And meat eating is... Look up that verse. Do you have a... I don't know. Nitya hi jantur nahi tatra chodana. Those are natural proclivities of conditioned soul. So it puts their prohibitions to save one from being afflicted by the lower modes of nature, so that one can practice positively in devotional service. This verse says, Loke vyavayam ishamadya seva nitya hi janturna hi tatra chodana vyavastitis teshu vivaha yagna suragraha asu nivritta ishta. In this material world, the conditioned soul is always inclined to sex, meat eating, and intoxication. Therefore, religious scriptures never actually encourage such activities, although the scriptural injunctions provide for sex through sacred marriage, for meat eating through sacrificial offerings, and for intoxication through the acceptance of ritual cups of wine. Such ceremonies are meant for the ultimate purpose of renunciation. And it goes on from there to talk about the ultimate objective of the Vedas. So Prabhupada gave us these basics, which are sinful entryways into lower consciousness, so that we could start on a platform based on yesham tontagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandvo mohanir mukta bachanti mam dridavarta. Yes, Prabhu?
Thank you. I have a question in regards to assimilating sinful reactions of disciples. What's your experience? Because Krishna Kshetra Maharaj once mentioned it's like when you're shaking a blanket, then some of that dust and dirt, it goes off and some of it lands on the person who's shaking the blanket. So he said that there's a description in the Shastra of what happens. But I was always wondering, what does assimilate mean? Like, do you have to suffer and take the consequences of it? Or bad health, bad dreams? Because it might push people away.
Well, why bad? Why not good?
Spiritual leadership.
Disciples I have, all I'm getting is uplifted practically from the position I'm coming from. I take on these people way more advanced than I am, then I also get that benefit. My experience is very practical, and that is that when you enter into any relationship, there's going to be a deep concern for the other person. And then, well, like for instance, I'll give you an example. Rādhanāth Swāmī, he has a few disciples. And recently, when I was speaking to him, he had been consoling a lot of people before they were dying, while they were dying, then the families after, and practically just one after another. And he said, yeah, that's a thing when you have disciples, because some of them die. And, I mean, they all do eventually, but maybe not before you. And then you're part of that. I mean, it's heart-wrenching when somebody you love passes away. And in the meantime, before that comes, when you're connected deeply to people who you care about in a spiritual relationship, they go through changes. You know, they make vows and then they say, oh, I can't follow the vows now. Or they say, you know, this happened in my life, and what do I do about that? And such hit me, and that keeps you up all night. I don't know about dreams, but definitely people calling late in the night with a text saying, what do I do now? I got locked out of the house, or something like that. I mean, that's real life experience of what happens. So that, you know, it's in a very practical level. When we love people, we have a deep relationship with them. We're part of their lives and they're part of our lives. And that's something you have to, you know, you want to take on if you love somebody and you want to help them. But you have to go through it with them. It's not compartmentalized. It's part of your life. They're part of your life and you're part of theirs, and that's an all-encompassing experience. That's my experience of it. And so it's quite natural, although it's put in quantitative terms sometimes, like in the Hari Bhakti-Vilas Sanatana Goswami gives some percentages, which I always find interesting, because like, okay, here's the percentage of what a king gets pious or impious results from his kingdom. So he says something like that when you take disciples, but I think on a very visceral, personal level, it's really what I just said. It's a very practical, straightforward thing. What do you think?
I don't know. I'm not.
Yeah, you do know. I see you all the time on the phone, trying to make it go twice as fast. What do you think that is? I mean, you have disciples all over the world because you're a leader, a spiritual leader, whether it's through Diksha or giving Harinam or whatever. Plus, you know, you have family members, and that's something that, you know, they don't grow up until they're maybe 45 years old or something like that. So you gotta worry about them until then, and it's the same thing. They're relationships, and it goes to the heart. Otherwise, how is it a relationship? If it's just a rubber stamp and then there's a number, it's like you get 2% of their karma. That's a little artificial.
Would you like to offset your karma, carbon footprint,
Yeah, and what Prabhupada says here is that you have to be up for it. There has to be a reason for it. He said you have to be preaching. Like, you have to have a mission. If you have some ulterior motive that, it's just some game like a multi-level marketing or something like that, even that probably has a mission. But, you have to try to spread the Sankirtan movement. And it's best spread when people have similar faith and they want to work together and they say, let's gather in a team and let's do this. It's always been like that, always will be. That's the nature of the living beings. Well, Prabhupada was the only spiritual master in our movement. Still, every Mayapur, when we meet in Mayapur, you go to the Ganga, everyone went to the Ganga. It was right in our backyard in Mayapur. It moved a little bit. But there would be groups all the way along the Ganga. And they'd all sit together and they'd have their leader, and everyone, even before there was an idea of other gurus or this or that, everyone gravitates towards a team and they want to work together, and they have respect for a local person who they're working with, and they feel like, yeah, I'm part of this team, I'm going to work hard. And so that kind of coagulation, to use a kind of chemical term, but sociologically and psychologically, it's quite natural. Not that that's exactly on the topic, but it's a natural phenomenon. Oh goodness. Okay. Oh yes, we have Achintya Chaitanya and we have Yogadish. And it looks like Nitya Tarangani has a summary. We'll keep them short because we only have 4 more minutes, from what I can tell.
Hare Krishna. The verse we just read, it seemed like there was a lot of enthusiasm, like hope, based on the reaction we had from it. It described how these 5 principles are very wonderful, and even without faith, one can awaken their dormant love of Krishna. But there's a big asterisk there, I thought, which is one who is a person who is offenseless. So I'm assuming that implies seva prad, nam prad, vaishnava prad. So why? I think that's a pretty big deal. That's not some easy thing to accomplish, being offenseless.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. You just have to be simple and sincere. That's what devotional service meant for, people who are sincere. And so we should avoid bad association. If somebody's offensive, then we should avoid them. And if our mind is offensive, we should just not say anything. So it's not that hard.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Chinta Chaitanya Prabhu.
Regarding the discussion that we had, there is a purport from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 9, Text 5, about assimilating reactions. And Prabhupada combines 3 things very nicely there in the purport. Prabhupada says, when I say 3 things, I was talking about the past, the future sinful activities, and also about the Sankirtan movement. So Prabhupada writes, sometimes the spiritual master, after accepting a disciple, must take charge of that disciple's past sinful activities, and being overloaded, must sometimes suffer, if not fully, then partially, for the sinful acts of the disciple. Every disciple, therefore, must be very careful not to commit sinful activities after initiation. The poor spiritual master is kind and merciful enough to accept a disciple and partially suffer for that disciple's sinful activities. But Krishna, being merciful to his servant, neutralizes the reactions of sinful deeds for the servant who is engaged in preaching his glories.
Thank you very much. I'll make a note. Also, I just say the past sinful activities of the disciple. It's like, say somebody takes on a disciple and they're going through a divorce or something like that. And there's some other, maybe they, like, let's just say there's I'll give an example, Shamasundar. He had been in the pharmaceutical business before he joined, but not officially. And then after he met Prabhupada, Prabhupada said, he came to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, I have to go to jail. And Prabhupada said, oh, No, Krishna was born in jail, so that's all right. And then he said, what happened? What did you do? And he said, I was selling drugs. And Prabhupada said, I used to sell drugs. Any case, I was just, everybody comes with some complexity. Everybody comes with some being besmirched by the material energy. So if you're going to interact with people and work with them on a spiritual path, then you have to expect that those are going to come, and that there's some consternation that comes along with that, and there's work to do. So that's also a kind of, and it's basically the same thing I just said. Thank you, Prabhu, for an extremely important quote. Okay, last one from the Inside People's Party. 1, 2. And we got to go.
This is text 104 and 105.
Okay.
Before that, the verses are explaining the lakshanas, that is Sharanagati. Verses were quoted. So, after quoting the definition of sadhana bhakti, in the next verse, even for Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, the standard Prabhupada mentions is that one should be completely free from, any material desire. That means even Vaidhi sadhana bhakti is practiced on the platform of Shuddha bhakti. So, my understanding, and I wanted a clarification, is that only when one comes to the point of Sharanagati does Vaidhi sadhana bhakti begin, because Vaidhi sadhana bhakti is fitting within the ambit of Uttama bhakti definition.
Yeah, anybody who comes to devotional service is on the path of Sharanagati. As Prabhupada pointed out, just anecdotally, when he's talking about, it's in a conversation, they're getting ready for initiation. They asked, should we fast before the initiation? Prabhupada said, they're already fasting. They don't eat meat, fish, or eggs. And the Sharanagati is a process. It's not an event where there's a plateau and he's like, okay, I hit the plateau. It's an ongoing process in one's life. That how are you going to measure, okay, someone's achieved the perfection of considering Krishna one's protector and maintainer. That's an ongoing process up to the very moment of leaving the body, probably. And all the others as well, to be meek and humble. Well, you have a little meter you can get from Ace Hardware, hook it up. It's like, okay, you're there, you're good, you're surrendered now. I mean, it's an ongoing process of surrender, and anybody who approaches Krishna, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, wants to take up the process, they're engaged in the surrendering process. And if your intention is Shuddha Bhakti, then it's green mango or ripe mango, because mango's mango. And if you're in the process, Apichet Sudaracharo Bhajate Manang Yabak, means Krishna accepts you, your intention is right. Even if you're still worldly, even if you're Sudaracharo, you're really you're messed up. But in your heart, you have the one qualification that counts out of all of them, which is that I'm going to surrender to Krishna. Even though I'm the worst at this of anybody who's ever lived, I want to surrender to Krishna. If you got that one thing, all the other qualities will develop naturally. So it's a very liberal process, and there are a lot of demarcations of levels where somebody is and what's the qualification for this, that. But the main qualification is that one's surrendered. And only Krishna knows that, how sincere we are within the heart. And he says, Tesham satati yuktanam, I know your heart. And if you just pray, if you're sincere and you try, even though you're on a seemingly, mostly you'd be disqualified by anybody else, but Prabhupada, who said, everybody can come in, take the process. And people might complain, said, who let that guy in? And then you just go like, well, who let you in? Everybody's like, Kirata Hunanda Pulinda Pulakasha. But that's the tenor of the teachings throughout the Bhagavatams. Everybody's invited to come in. If you start Kama Sarva Kama Va Moksha Kama Dharati, okay, you're in the process. Doesn't matter who you are, where you start. Tivrena Bhakti is so powerful. It knocks out all the other stuff. In fact, there are these astounding statements. The guy said Hare Krishna one time. He's the best. Out of all the whole population here in the whole country, on the continent, that guy's the best. He just said, Hare, did you hear him? That's the message, really. Hare Krishna. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Prabhu, better be quick. Sorry to give him the mic, sorry. Go ahead. Take as long as you like.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. It's a quick one. So the 5 potent ones, one is Mathura Vas. Mahaprabhu lived in Mayapur, Jagannathpur and Vrindavan. Here it says where Krishna has performed his pastimes.
Or a temple.
Or a temple, right.
Yeah.
But how about others, like who are not in a temple, who are not in Mathura, Vrindavan, Jagannath Puri?
Well, Lord Chaitanya said you should always live in Vrindavan. If you can't be there physically, you should be there in your heart and mind, and that's the most important thing. So we come to Vrindavan, we cultivate a relationship with the Dham, and then we go back. And if you never get to come back again, you can always remember, this is Vrindavan Dham, but the temples are also non-different. They're the same thing. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Radhe Shyam, if you so desire, please instill in us complete faith in the 64 items of devotional service, and let us be firmly fixed in at least the 5 that have this unearthly power to elevate us to your pure devotional service. And please let us inculcate this into the lives of millions of people, billions, all over the world. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone who agrees with this prayer in whole or in part, please unmute and say Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Gaur Premanande, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Vanchakopadurishta kripasindhaveva patitanam bhavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you, everyone. We'll take it up again at 3:59 p.m. today. See you then.